There are dozens of new cases every day. In Sierra Leone, officials say so many people are dying of Ebola that dealing with their bodies is becoming a problem. A quarantine zone has been imposed around one area known as the gateway to the capital, Freetown, but the disease is still spreading. With Britain concentrating its humanitarian efforts in Sierra Leone, the International Development Secretary, Justine Greening, has been visiting facilities there today. Our science editor, Tom Clarke, is in Freetown. Tom, what's the latest?
John, just about a mile from where I'm standing now is the shack settlement of Crabtown. They've just had a rash of Ebola cases. Many have died, many are sick with the virus. The poorest of Africa's poor live there, and they know exactly what to do. They're calling the government hotline to say, we have infected cases, come and get us. But no help is arriving. As we understand it, there just aren't enough ambulances and aren't enough treatment centres to take the Ebola infected to. But as you'll see in my report, there is some reason for hope here. The grim but essential task of burying the dead is now coming under some sort of control. This is Crabtown, built on stinking estuary mud, just a short walk from the wealthiest parts of Freetown. A settlement of single-room shacks where life was hard enough before Ebola showed up just a few days ago. Now, in the crowded and squalid conditions, it's spreading unchecked. The police and military are trying to enforce a rudimentary quarantine, but the government ambulances, which are supposed to collect suspected cases before they infect others, have failed to arrive. Neighbours have called, but nobody comes. We're now being taken to the home of a 10-year-old boy called Edate. His mother and sister have died of Ebola. 2 days ago, his father died. He's been on his own in the house since then. No one has gone to collect him. Edate has spent 2 nights sleeping in the rain outside his dead parents' home. We're with Red Cross workers who are trying to get help for the boy, but as a suspected case, only a team in full protective equipment can collect him. For now, all they can do is give him food and water and keep calling for help. Could you ask him how? Can you ask him how it's been the last couple of days for him?
Okay. He said, and for the days there, then 2 days there, this happened. How will you feel?
He's not feeling good. Really, he's sad about the deaths of his parents.
It's as if Ebola has put an invisible wall around this little boy who is in such desperate need of help. His neighbours don't want to take him in, and even volunteers who come here to help him can't get too close because of the risk of Ebola infection to them. A local health worker tells me there are several other sick families just a few streets from where we're standing.
As I am now talking to you, we have lost the life of another young baby, about 3 months old, just in the neighborhood in another quarantine house, which we've done the same thing, call upon doctors to come, but with no good response.
Since we arrived in Freetown at the weekend, the number of reported Ebola cases has nearly doubled every day. Collecting and isolating new cases is still lagging far behind the spread. Aid is now pouring into Sierra Leone, but conditions like these give Ebola the upper hand against any humanitarian response. A few hours after filming Edate, we learned an ambulance finally arrived for this terrified boy. Last night, Aminata Karoma died from Ebola. Bumping through the scrub to her home on the outskirts of Freetown are the volunteers who've come to take her body away. Her husband and father of her 5 children tells me he simply doesn't know how he will live without her.
My wife, if I able get this place here today.
He tells me she was the sole breadwinner. She paid for the house. She was the pillar of their family. And now he must watch as the burial team prepare to give her the most dignified funeral this terrible disease allows. Their preparations are meticulous. Any contact with body fluids could be fatal to them. Going in to collect the Ebola dead is one of the riskiest jobs in the world right now. But these Red Cross volunteers know it's one that has to be done. All the evidence suggests the majority of new Ebola cases are directly linked to people who had contact with a dead body. Burying people quickly and safely is key to getting this outbreak under control. After final checks, the cortege of goggles, masks and yellow suits goes to retrieve her body. The Red Cross are now carrying out 85% of burials in Sierra Leone. And while safe burial like this is fundamental, so too is educating families about what to do if someone else gets sick.
Anything will happen to you, you get fever, you get your body warm, you get diarrhea, anything. Yeah? Yeri, not think too much, come out plain.
Visit Monday morning's market in Freetown and you'd be forgiven for thinking Ebola wasn't spreading across the country. But look closer and signs of a nation's anxiety are everywhere. These girls at the market sing a new song they're learning. It's a simple message, wash your hands 4 times a day, but it might help slow Ebola's spread. As the virus leaves the rest of the world almost paralysed with fear, this, the poorest part of Africa, simply can't afford to indulge it.
And Tom Clarke now joins us live from Freetown in Sierra Leone. Tom, you've talked of the fear and you've talked of the world's fear. What's your own fear in these circumstances and how does it measure with the people you're encountering?
Well, John, I have to say, walking into that slum area today where there are so many people who may be infected with Ebola, it is a frightening prospect, a frightening possibility. But this is a disease spread by contact. If obviously you're careful about not touching things and people, the risk is quite low. But I can walk out of that slum again. I can come back here to my hotel, wash my hands with chlorine and go to bed. The people out there are simply too poor to do that. There is no running water, there is no sanitation. So if it's frightening for me, the sort of confused bewilderment amongst some of those poorest people about the fear of Ebola is impossible to comprehend.
Tom, thank you. Tom Clarke, our science editor, live in Sierra Leone, and the cameraman who's working with him in that country is John Templeton.